Growing up in South Dakota was amazing. Grew up in a town of like 70,000 people. I was raised by two wonderful parents. My father, a military guy. My mom, amazing landscape designer. For my father, the most important thing he taught me was that family comes first. And if it means working night shift for 35 years so you can make sure you never miss a baseball game, never miss a wrestling match, and are able to make sure you're there and active in your kid's life, that's worth the trade-off. I grew up in a super competitive family. So what I mean competitive, it's both academically and through sports. So for me, being the youngest in my family and having an older brother and sister that were super driven at two different areas, what I tried to do is I tried to copy them. I ended up not only playing really highly competitive at sports, having a state championship in wrestling, I played the top of baseball. On the other side, I was always the top of my class in school because I followed my brother, followed my sister. So before starting with this, I was actually in college. So I started thinking about people I knew that were successful or on a path to become successful. And one of my close family friends, Dustin Viennekamp, was one of the people at the top of that list. So I sent an email out to him because I didn't have his phone number anymore. I connected with him, we sat down at a restaurant. He explained to me that he's growing inside this company. He just became partners with the company and that he's building his ground floor. The next day I woke up, I called the registrar, let him know I wasn't going to be coming back to class the next week, and joined Dustin Viennekamp back in 2006, and the rest is history. I remember one conversation I had with my mentor where we were talking about, what I wanted and how I was going to get it, and my goal at that time was to make $1,000 a month. Because that would cover my bills and I'd have a couple $100 extra to go do whatever I wanted to do. And he challenged me during that same meeting. He goes, well, what are you gonna do when you're making $1,000 in a week? And I literally laughed out loud in front of my mentor. I remember one of the thoughts that came to my head, that I was gonna be the guy that was gonna be able to go out to eat any night of the week he wanted and that would never again care what the cost of gas would be. Like, I remember those were the thoughts. If I just could make $1,000 in a week, that this was an unbelievable life that I could live, and I couldn't imagine how to spend all the extra money. One of the hardest parts about this position was, I came into it not knowing anything about insurance, not knowing anything about sales, and being like the lowest guy in the totem pole and watching people beat me. So every single week, we always had scoreboards to see how everyone else was doing, and I remember thinking if this was any other sport in the world, none of these people would have a chance to beat me. But I had to remind myself that, hey, everyone starts somewhere. This is mechanical. If you listen to your mentors, you get trained, and you work your tail off, then you can pass anybody at anything. And it wasn't long before I was at the top of those scoreboards. So the biggest support in my life is my wife. I met her 2 months before I started with this position, and it wasn't something that we knew where it was going to end up, just like a lot of great things in my life. But her support is something that I really couldn't be successful without it. I'm constantly trying to set the best example for my children, and I think this business helps a ton with that. Because the more that you work with people, the more that you grow yourself, the better you are to teach someone else how to do that. So I pride myself most not about our business, but about how it's enabled me to be a better parent, enabled me to be a better husband, enabled me to be a better son, and a better brother to my brother and sister as well. So I'm not huge on quotes, but one thing that I always go by is off Shawshank Redemption, which is get busy living or get busy dying. I look at every day of my life as an opportunity to do something big. When I was 20 years old, I was diagnosed with cancer. And for me, that was like a turning point that grew me up really quick. And so every day I kind of have to gauge against if that did come up again, and that was the last doctor visit I had, was I doing what I wanted to do yesterday? So if I'm getting busy living or getting busy dying, I gotta tell you, I'm getting busy living.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
What kind of cancer?
Melanoma. It wasn't good.
Talk about any of that?
You sure? I can talk about any of that. When I was 20 years old, I was diagnosed with cancer, and it was kind of a fluke deal. My brother and sister, they were going to a dermatologist. They had acne. They're 3 years older than me, and along the way, they're like, "Oh, do you have any acne or any moles?" And I was like, "Yeah, I do. I have a mole in the middle of my back. When I scratch my back, I can feel it." They're like, "Well, maybe we should go get it checked out." So I went into the doctors, and this is in Rapid City, South Dakota, and they looked at it and they go, well, that's something that we should probably remove. So they removed it, checked it to see if it was for cancer. And one of the 3 doctors in South Dakota said it was cancer. We're not known for the best medical in the world, small town USA isn't. So they sent it down to Denver. 5 different doctors looked at it. All 5 doctors said it was cancer. I got a chance to take my first plane trip right after that, 2 weeks later. I flew down with my father. Sorry, kind of passionate about this. So I flew down to MD Anderson down in Houston, Texas. I was super scared. Luckily enough, my dad, because he did work the night shift, he was able to take his time off, come down with me. I had a really big cancer surgery. I'm missing a big chunk of my back. It was an 18-hour surgery, missing a bunch of lymph nodes in my neck, my armpits. Yeah, 18 hours later, they removed everything, which is a blessing. One of the things that I knew for sure is that without family, I never would have made it through that. On the other side, it grew me up a ton. When you live your life like you have 60, 80 years left, or you're young right now, you're starting with a company, if this doesn't work, that's okay. All those are just things you're telling yourself that aren't true. Every day that you go do anything counts, and every day does matter, and who you surround yourself with matters the most. So from that one thing, I gotta tell you, you look at things a little bit different, and I hope no one has to go through that, but I'd rather you take my word for it that every day does count, and that you need to make sure you spend it with people that count to you. So what I want for my people is I just want them to know it doesn't matter where they start, it doesn't matter what age you are, it doesn't matter what city you're in, this business is the same everywhere. And I think for me, that's what I want to be remembered as, not as some person that was really successful with some great title or rose to the top of the company in some way. I don't want that. I want there to be a story in some little office somewhere with the ripple effect 2 or 3 generations down and not even have my name attached to it. Because I think our mission has to be a little bit bigger than titles, a little bit bigger than individuals, and has to be more about what's the ripple that we're really having. The same way Rick Altig, Elia, Rob, James, Dustin Viennekamp have had for all of us. And down the road, the ripple on that, I think can change the whole thing. And I want to be away from cell phone signal. When I retire, no one's ever going to contact me again. I want to throw my phone in the ocean, then snorkel down to get it, because I don't litter. But I'm going to be out. Engelson, recharging. Peace.